Welcome to Black and Gold Digital Edition, a behind-the-scenes look at your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Hi everyone, I'm Jay Puskar alongside Mike Fenner. Kent Urbanski is going to join us momentarily. Welcome to our digital segment for week number 2. And here we are already talking week number 2. Denver Broncos coming into town for a matchup against the Steelers at Heinz Field. Pittsburgh coming off a very impressive win at the Giants Monday night. Mike, what did you take away from that game? A slow start for the Steelers, but then once they got going, they were clicking.
Exactly, just that. I mean, a few drives to start the game offensively where they did not look sharp. Ben Roethlisberger did not look in sync, and then all of a sudden, it's like a switch flipped, and he looked like the old Ben once again, getting his receivers involved. And I mean, he admitted it after the game. He felt like he was in a train wreck or a car accident, things along those lines.
He is in his late 30s, so those bumps and bruises are magnified.
Yeah, 38 years old, and coming off the injury, first game back, but it's such a great sign to see 3 touchdown passes, a road win. He pretty much checked all the boxes after that little bit of a slow start, but good, encouraging to see that in week 1 and huge to get a win.
Kent, other than us watching the game and not being at MetLife Stadium, which was a very weird feeling for all 3 of us, what was your takeaway from Monday night?
Well, that Ben is back.
Yeah.
And the guy can make throws that no one else on that roster can make. And that was the reason they got the victory. And really that I was concerned about the offensive line, and boy, even more going into this weekend, because they're dinged up a little bit. But no true number 1 wide receiver, but boy, do they have a plethora of people to go to.
How great is it to see those weapons, too? As we mentioned a little bit already, the injuries started to crop up already. You had Benny Snell Jr. stepping up. You know, Juju did his thing, but also James Washington played awfully well. You know, it's a plethora of riches right now for the Steelers.
No doubt. And going into this game against Denver, kind of unsure going into the week who's actually going to be that starting running back, but I think Benny Snell made a case for himself at MetLife Stadium to be that guy.
And Mike, it's cliche. We always talk about how defense tends to travel. The defense was right there again. We knew on paper this defense was going to be pretty good. They looked like they were in midseason form against the Giants.
6 rushing yards for Saquon Barkley. That's unbelievable. I mean, if you would have told me going into the game Ben Roethlisberger was going to outrush Saquon Barkley, I would have told you you're absolutely crazy. But that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I'd take that bet.
9-6. I mean, they kept him bottled up. The defense absolutely played outside in. They set the edge. They set the tempo there on defense of how they wanted to play, and the Giants didn't have much that they could do about it. You know, with the exception of that 19-play drive that Pittsburgh finishes with a turnover, an interception by Cam Hayward, his first career pick. For a defensive lineman to have that kind of moment had to be satisfying, and that really, I think, demoralized the Giants and really put that game out of reach, because it just seemed like if they couldn't score a touchdown on that drive or put any points on the board, you know, Pittsburgh wasn't going to lose.
Kent, we saw it all last season, and just the combination of T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree, boy, they were at it again Monday night. They really haven't missed a step either. And just talk about that tandem and what they bring to this defense.
Relentless.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it, 15 pass rushes or, you know, hurries on the quarterback between the two of them? I mean, it's unbelievable. And what's even more unbelievable to me is that Bud Dupree's 270 pounds. He shouldn't be able to get around the edge
Yeah,
that
he moves
quickly.
much faster than that.
And oh my gosh, and he does move. And with TJ on the other side, and the great pick that he had, pretending he's like dropping into coverage, and just took away a pass play from Daniel Jones that totally caught him by surprise. And I think it caught everybody else by surprise. And I think he was buried behind the line there. You didn't even see him, and then all of a sudden his hands are grabbing the ball for an interception. Incredible from both guys.
And just the way they've been reacting. I mean, the humility on this defense is just impressive. It's not, hey, look what I did. It's look what we did. And they love to share the wealth, especially T.J. Watt. Any post game that we were able to get last year, and you're starting to see it already, he deflects any sort of attention that he's getting for his stats with the rest of his teammates, and that's just refreshing, especially in the National Football League.
I remember a couple post games last year. He tried to warn us. He's like, hey, don't worry about what I was doing. Look at what Bud Dupree was doing. This guy's underrated. I mean, this guy makes plays just like I do, and everybody, they get each other fired up. They love to celebrate each other's accomplishments, just like you said. And it's like a challenge. Who can go out there and make the pick? Who can go out there and make the pressure? Who can get the sack? And who can make the play to step up? And they take great pride in being one of the best takeaway defenses in the league after 36 years ago. And they take great pride in being, you know, the leaders of this team.
Could you imagine this defense as it is right now, and having Ryan Shazier healthy on this team?
Yeah, scary thought.
unbelievable how scary they would be.
Speaking of which, even though he's not on the field, how important has he been? What kind of an asset as just an emotional leader on that sideline with this defense, still having the black and gold blood running through him and being able to be a part of this team, even though he announced his retirement before the start of the season?
I think he had a very positive effect on this whole linebacking crew, you know, just by his style of play. And these guys are, you know, and Ryan basically brought speed to the table and was able to cover over the middle and cover linebacker or cover tight ends. And I think this crew right now is kind of emulates the style of play that he put out there for those guys.
The theme for 2019 for the Pittsburgh Steelers was just dealing with injuries, and here we are after week one. A rash of injuries already cropping up, but if there's any team in the National Football League that can handle this, Mike, it is Pittsburgh, because they have already done it a year ago.
Absolutely, yeah. They went through the most rigorous season last year between the quarterbacks. So many different spots. They lost Stephon Tuitt for the year last year. You know, it's obviously hugely disappointing to lose Zach Banner, a right tackle, a guy that's a locker room favorite, a guy that worked so hard to get, you know, himself in that position. Ben Roethlisberger talked about it. He earned that job. He was not given that right tackle spot. And, you know, Chuks Okafor is going to be a guy that they depend on now at that spot. You had David DeCastro out this past week on the offensive line, some other new guys working their way in, and that's going to be a big spot this week against the Denver defense. Even though they are missing Von Miller, now they're missing A.J. Boye on the outside, they still have some really, really tough guys. Bradley Chubb, a guy that Coach Mike Tomlin referenced, guys that can get some pressure on the quarterback. So it's going to be another tough assignment, even though it's a home game, and even though they've proven time and time again they've got that depth and they can roll guys out there that can play big-time football. That's going to be a big key this week is the offensive line, I think.
Kent, last year we heard a lot of praise about Mike Tomlin and the way the staff handled those injuries, and here we go again. You know, that theme is already being written after week one, and just your take on how the coaching staff has been able to handle this and not worry about the then, but they're worried about the now and the future.
Well, it's next man up philosophy. It's always been that way with Tomlin. And with this team, I think what they do when the injury bug does hit, they pick guys off the waiver wire who've played for the Steelers, who know the system, and that they don't have to spend time coaching them up and learning the system, that if they need them right away, they're there.
All right, let's start talking about the Broncos. Both teams had played on Monday night. The Broncos losing a close one against the Tennessee Titans at home. The Steelers, as we've mentioned already before, they pick up a nice road win against the Giants. Steelers making their home debut. How do you see this kind of matching up a little bit? Pittsburgh already getting that sense of how to handle no fans at Heinz Field, considering that they've practiced there and they've already had that first road test.
Yeah, these are two teams that you would have thought would have huge home field advantage. Maybe two of the teams affected the most by not having fans. Denver Monday night not having those. They had limited friends and family, I guess, last second, and then Pittsburgh no fans at Heinz Field. Two huge home field advantages. Yeah, I mean, the Steelers kind of got used to that with the Giants, seeing how it all unfolded and just, okay, you know, there's a big play, and I guess there's not really any buzz to it, but I think you kind of get used to that with the warm-ups. You come out, you realize, okay, this is the set of circumstances. We have to make our own energy. We talked about that being a big factor. I just think the comfort, the familiarity, how well they play at home will be an advantage. And, yeah, I mean, both teams, I guess, equal in terms of the short week because of both playing on Monday night. So should be interesting, but a long road trip, I guess, for Denver.
Kent, you're like one of the players. You've been on the sidelines for decades, and you even get the butterflies and the adrenaline going, and just almost put us in the shoes of the players and trying to build that and see if they can take that onto the field.
Well, we have to understand one thing. They've been practicing there for the last month.
Right.
You know, so there's a familiarity with the field and with the surroundings that Denver coming in from, you know, from far on the West Coast there that they're not going to have. So there's an advantage right there. Yeah, the fans aren't going to be there. The vibe, the energy, coming out of that tunnel, you know, I think Ben's big debut after a year or so being away from the game was looking forward to that. But I think he got that out of his system in New York, and I'm looking for those guys to just continue what they did next week. It's going to be a similar type of a game, I think. Advantage goes to Pittsburgh. I think they can run the ball on Denver. I think Tennessee did a good job. They were well over 100 yards rushing against them. So, again, a balanced attack with running and throwing the ball. It's all going to come down to whether the offensive line can protect.
Should be a great matchup. It's teams that are no strangers to the postseason, and they're meeting in week number 2. No fans at Heinz Field, but the Steelers will still try to make it a 2-0 start to the 2020 regular season. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. We're glad that you were able to tune in for week number 2, and we'll talk to you next week as you were watching Black and Gold Today Digital Edition.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week for Black and Gold Digital Edition.